Welcome back to Sledgehammer Horror, guys. I am Ken Sledge, and let's talk horror. Now, today I'm joined by the amazing David Washburn. David, how you doing today, man?
Pretty good. How are you?
I'm doing very well. David is a very, very good friend of the channel's, and it's amazing to finally make the time to have him here. But before we talk about why David's here, I would like to, for the people that don't know you, to get to know you a little bit. You are from the greater Cincinnati area, northern Kentucky.
Yeah.
Um, you live with your two teen sons and the lady of the house. And like I said, you are a writer, and suspense and tension, they're kind of your playground. You've independently self-published multiple books, Devils That Prey, The Tickle Monster, and your newest novel, DIY Exorcism. So what got you started in being a writer?
Um, Started about 2017, 2018. I wanted to get into filmmaking. Started off writing screenplays and when you're trying to record stuff, trying to make short films and you're working with other people, it's very difficult to coordinate schedules. You're at the mercy of everyone's availability. Everyone's talents are different. Everybody's bringing different resources. But one thing that was kind of frustrating was when you're writing screenplay, you're really handcuffed to those resources and what you can and can't do. And being a creative type, I just want to create. I don't want to be worried about that stuff. Robert Kirkman was one. He said it best, I think, on an episode of Talking Dead. He had talked about when he wrote, Ezekiel and the tiger into the comics, and when they were on the show, he said he wrote them and he didn't want to think about it being filmed. He just wanted to write what he wanted to write.
Right.
And that sentiment stuck with me in a way that, okay, I just want to write what I write. I don't want to worry about if we can film it. So if I want to write a car crash in, I don't want to worry about buying a junker. None of that stuff.
Right.
So eventually I stopped writing screenplay, and, a couple years went by and I still had the itch to want to write, and an idea hit me and I couldn't stop thinking about it. And I started looking into how to write long form narrative and novelizing things. And that's kind of where it started.
See, and you guys could check out his writing as well by clicking the links down in the description. I also have David's social media links. So make sure you are following him on social media as well as checking out the book. So Devils That Prey and The Tickle Monster, non-spoiler, obviously. Can you tell us a little bit about those two?
So Devils That Prey is the first book that I wrote, a full-length novel. It is a slasher slash cult book. It's about a group of college kids that are, they're freshmen and they're heading home for the summer break. And they're driving home together and they're pre-gaming and they're just kind of being a little obnoxious on these back roads. They take a detour because highway traffic and an accident. And they're messing with cars on the road, and they end up picking on this church van and it's full of old people, and it ends up basically being wrong van, wrong time. Um, and the story is basically about this antagonist group that live in this community, and it's all older people who feel like they have a bone to pick with the younger generation, and they have this idea that America left them behind, and the young people are kind of,
The reason.
yeah. So when these young people come through, they kind of become targets, and these older people, they 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 gather as a small community in this barn, and they do some questionable things, and they have some questionable beliefs that yeah, that's all I can really say about that. But it was a fun book, and I like to talk, like, as I've got a few books under my belt now, it's very obvious now in hindsight that that book was just me getting it out of my system. Being a horror fan, I feel like there's a lot of homage to the things I love in horror. So, um, not that things were like a direct copy, but just, a lot of my influences can be seen in that writing. And
I love that.
I
I
think
think
it,
that's always the best, man. Like when you can see somebody's influence on their sleeve. We do the same thing. Home is Where the Haunt Is has a direct homage to Texas Chainsaw Massacre in it.
yeah,
And there's things like that we, people will be like, oh, you ripped that off. I'm like, if it's that obvious, obviously we know.
yeah,
Obviously we did it to pay homage to them and show respect and honor to the people that came before us.
yeah,
Not ripping out their whole script, but doing one or two things where you're looking and you're going, I see what you did there.
yeah,
That's
yeah,
awesome.
yeah.
Yeah. And when you put that into writing and you can read it and you still get that, that's an incredible thing.
Yeah, what was fun about that first book was I was still very much learning how to write long form. So I wasn't a big reader up until that point, and there was a point where it's like, well, if I'm going to write books, I need to read more. So it was a very intentional effort for me to start reading. Now I'm reading, 40 to 60 books a year. Um, but writing a book, at that time, I was still conditioned to write screenplay. And there's a lot of rules for screenplay that don't apply to books. And I was kind of trying to marry the two worlds together. And I kind of created a style that I fell in love with that I dare I say I think is my style is when you write a screenplay, one of the rules is you're supposed to spend just as much time with your protagonist as your antagonist, but they don't
Right.
do that on, especially in horror. You don't see that a lot where you're following your bad guy or your killer. They're usually a mystery and there's something to fear. But in Devils that Prey, that was me spending just as much time with both groups and really getting a feel for what's going on at all times. It's told in third person present tense. So I like to describe that as my voice is I tell a story from the camera lens, not first person, not past tense. I'm telling it as it happens. You're a fly on the wall as a reader. And that's just something I really love. I feel like it creates a lot of tension during the action as well.
Well, and that's what we want. I want to be on the edge of my seat when I'm reading.
Yeah.
What about the Tickle Monster?
Tickle Monster was this is a fun story. So this was a novella. A lot shorter. The story behind this was when my youngest son was littler. I think every household has this. You're a dad, you probably have your own iteration of this. During bedtime, you bust out the tickle monster or some iteration of that. And usually it starts with you're getting the kids wound up when they're supposed to be winding down. You start wrestling, maybe you start tickling, maybe someone starts crying. Now everyone's upset and no one's sleeping. And um,
Every mom watching this is going, "Yeah, we fucking know."
Yeah, yeah. So where this idea came from was as my son started getting a little older, the game got a little less cute and it got
Right.
a little more annoying. And I'm someone who I'm very much like Conan O'Brien when it comes to a joke. Like I'll take it just too far to be annoying, but not enough to make you angry. Just so I did that with this. So my son, he's like, stop doing that. It's not funny anymore. You're not as funny as you think you are. And it's like, oh, you got me. But um, I had told him, I was just like, just watch. One day I'm going to make it something terrifying and it won't be funny. And this
Right.
book is the version of that where um, I couldn't stop thinking, what can I do with the tickle monster? And I was like, well, let me do a timepiece. So I put it in the colonial era and I took a family, put them in a farmhouse, put some creepy woods around them. And I made it very much like a wholesome family story. And in the back of the book, I shout my son out too, and I just think it's a funny thing that something so simple and innocent was turned into this terrifying, ominous, dreadful thing.
Well, and like you said, this is something that you and your son are going to have forever.
Yeah,
Like that's special.
yeah,
That's something that he's always going to remember too.
yeah.
And obviously now, DIY exorcism. I'm about halfway through right now, so I got to be honest with you guys. I've been trying to plug away, but we've been so busy, and we're so excited about it. But can you tell us a little bit about DIY exorcism?
So DIY Exorcism, this is actually a story that I've had in mind since I was doing screenplay. And this was originally going to be a short film that was done entirely through like YouTube vlog style, where you've got a small town pastor who he's got a lot on his plate. He's going through a divorce. His dad just passed away. His dad was also the lead pastor. So he's inheriting this church. He's not quite up to snuff, but he's trying. Um, he's a beacon and a counsel to the community. It's a small town, and he's just trying to maintain this wholesome reputation while his family's falling apart around him. He's got a 10-year-old son, and one weekend he has his son, and his son starts acting a little strange. Strange turns to violent, and in a knee-jerk reaction, he handcuffs his son to the furnace in the basement. Of course, pastor trying to protect his reputation. Mom can't find out. So, he's got to figure out what am I going to do to save my son and also protect my reputation. I know I'm going to give it a goog. And he goes to the internet and he looks up how to perform an exorcism. And it's just very intense for the next few days while things happen around the house. And I think it was a pretty fun book to write as well.
Well, I can't wait until it becomes a screenplay. So, like I said, guys, you can find out more about. I'm trying to be as vague as we can with this because I want you guys to check it out for yourself. So make sure you're clicking the links down in the description, following David on social media, and checking out some of his writing as well. So, In order to be a writer in horror, doing all the amazing things you're doing, horror had to start for you somewhere. So now, David, I would like to go back to the past and talk about what got you started in the horror genre, your first horror movie. And David, the first horror movie you watched was?
The first horror movie I watched that I remember was Child's Play 3.
Oh, what a beautiful movie.
Now, I can't say I'm a fan of it, but I remember, yeah, I know. My I remember my mom and dad were my mom was pregnant with my younger sister. I was 7 at the time, and I remember ambulance came and got my mom when she was giving birth or going into labor.
Yeah.
My dad rushes me to my aunt's house in the middle of the night, and I remember just being wired. I'm about to be a big brother for the first time. Like I don't know what do I do? I'm 7 years old, and I'm just sitting in her living room. She, gets me a blanket, puts me on the couch, and then she goes back to bed. They've got cable TV. I'm not used to cable TV. I'm just flipping through channels. I'm excited. What? This remote is so big. There's so many buttons. I'm flipping through Child's Play 3. I see the doll with the knife, and I catch it probably about halfway through. I'm 7 years old, and I'm into it. And all I knew at that time was kids in class would talk about Jason, Michael, and Freddy. They wouldn't mention the movies by name. They would just mention the characters by name. And I remember like kids dressing up as them and not really knowing what they were, but thinking, "Oh, that sounds pretty cool." But yeah, that's my first experience with a horror movie.
And everybody that knows me knows that's my favorite one in the whole franchise. So I'm very
It,
excited to talk about it. We know you were very young, 7 years old, watching it at your aunt's house for the very first time. But do you remember the scene that affected you the most?
I don't remember it too well. I wouldn't say I was affected in any way though. I just remember thinking like this is way cooler than this is not the Ninja Turtles that I'm used to. This is not Rocky when my dad's watching movies. This is something totally different that I'm just really on board with. I remember after that though, my mom would watch Tales from the Crypt and The Outer Limits on TV on Saturday nights, and that would be like my excuse to stay up was I want to watch it with her. And I remember being really into the Crypt Keeper and stuff. But I don't remember a lot specifically about those. I can tell you though, the first movie that did have an effect on me,
Yeah.
and it's not a horror movie. Patrick Swayze, Whoopi Goldberg, Demi Moore, Ghost.
Hmm.
Um, I remember there's a scene where Patrick Swayze is in bed, and I think it's a dream sequence, but he's like rolling over, and it's just white everywhere, and he rolls over, and he's face to face with like an angel mannequin. And I
Yeah.
remember as a young kid always being freaked out at that scene. And that was my parents had the movie on VHS. I remember them watching it all the time. And just every time that scene came on, it was the most unsettling thing to me. And it's such a weird, specific thing, though.
Right. And it's funny because there's a lot of scary scenes in that movie, man.
Yeah.
Like a lot of
What
fucked up stuff in that movie.
when he's learning to touch stuff with the guy at the train, the guy, get off my train.
He's pushing him
No.
and shit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And yeah, it is scary, but like the aesthetic of the movie and the storyline, there's nothing horror about it other than that situation sucks. But then you
Right.
put on all the romantic stuff and it kind of softens it a little bit. But
Right.
there's, you catch those few little things. It's like, oh, I don't like that.
And especially as a kid, like
Yeah.
those scenes really, really were very effective. So, and it's funny because some of the non-horror stuff that is scary hits a little bit harder just because of the sheer fact that you're not expecting horror out of it. So when it does, you do see it, it hits you a little bit harder. But with Child's Play 3, there are not a lot of kills, but all the kills in the movie really, really do stick out a little bit. Do you remember which kill it was that affected you the most from Child's Play 3?
Not particularly. There was one that didn't he kill the CEO of the
Yeah,
toy
at the very
company?
beginning.
Yeah. I did catch that. And I did go back and watch it like a long time ago, but yeah, it's like I remember the first one better. But yeah, Child's Play, it's not one of my go-tos at all, but
Mhm.
yeah.
I can't talk shit because it is my go-to.
Yeah, I know.
um,
I
and I know that horror started for you with Child's Play 3, but I know you're not a huge fan of that film. But which film in the Child's Play franchise would you say is your favorite?
um Seed of Chucky, I think.
Seed?
Seed, yeah. That's probably the one I've watched the most. I was a teenager and hanging out with my girlfriend at the time. we would just hang out at her uncle's house and we would watch the same few movies, and that ended up being one of the DVDs that was just always in the stack. So
Which is funny because that's a hot take, man. A lot of people do not like that
yeah,
film.
I like Bride of Chucky too,
Right. But
but yeah,
that's Ashley. Ashley loves Bride. She's always
yeah.
said everything's better with a bride, man. Um, so we know that horror started for you with Child's Play, and very important franchise for me especially. But real quick, my little buddy Ghostface is here, and he has a question for you. What's your favorite scary movie, David? What is your favorite horror movie of all time?
Favorite of all time is, I always say, Wolf Creek.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, so this film, I was an adult when I watched this too, but it was I think it was a time when, yeah, I had already seen Texas Chainsaw Massacre and films of that ilk, but something about Wolf Creek and the antagonist, everything in that movie is grounded in reality.
Yeah.
There's an isolating feeling to the group when they're on the road. They've got a goal, and then you've got this antagonist with a smile on his face. He's just like a regular dude, and he's not trying to stab you. He's got a rifle and a lot of distance, and he's having a great time. And I just think there's something absolutely terrifying about that. There's this Australian redneck who just got bored with hunting animals, and now he wants to hunt tourists.
Right.
And
And it's
it's
such an insane thing to do because it also, as American viewers, it's foreign to us anyway.
yeah,
The Australian outback, and then seeing this guy who is, Crocodile Dundee on crack, you know, going
yeah,
after these people, man.
yeah. Seeing this for the first time, I went in blind. I'd never heard of it, and just the grittiness of it, I was just like, oh my God! Like I was like drooling over Devil's Rejects for a very short time, and then I saw Wolf Creek, and I'm like, this is where it's at. I think like I
Yeah.
loved it. Um, and then, around that time, I think Hostel was coming out and things like that. And you just kind of had this surgence of like these more grittier films. But Wolf Creek's definitely left a big impression on me. And I think before Wolf Creek, though, there's a film that I think we talked about it at GoalieCon for a short bit, but I call it my transition film. I was a teenager and not quite a horror film. It's a thriller, but Joyride.
Hmm.
That film is another one that had a big impression on me. Practical, grounded in reality, could really happen, and you've just got this like impossible situation that you're running from, and a terrifying setting, terrifying antagonist with no face, and just something about the tension in that film. It was just I think that was like my gateway into, okay, I need more.
Right. Candy cane.
And again, yeah,
Love that shit, man. And Joyride is one of those movies that if I remember I had it on VHS, and at the end of the VHS, after the credits, they had like 9 alternate endings for it, and a
yeah,
couple of them weren't even like filmed. They were literally just the storyboards of what the ending would have been. And I remember watching those and just being in awe over like watching them show the storyboards and how that they were storyboarding it. I thought that was so dope. So like when I think of Joyride, I have this like extra special feeling just because like that was my first time watching someone talk about storyboards. Because this was
yeah,
not VHS, this was before I had the DVD of it and I was watching special features and shit like that. It was literally after the credits of the VHS, and I was watching the storyboards play out, and I was like, that is so fucking awesome. Like, it looks so cool to watch someone talk about their storyboards and how they're storyboarding it out. So, man, I've had an amazing time talking about your first horror movie and your favorite horror movie. But before I let you go, we always bounce back to the same question. We're going to go back to Child's Play 3, and what we're going to do is rank this movie on a skull count. Now, as always, David, we're not ranking it on acting, production, score, direction, nothing like that. We're not being critics. What we're going to do is rank this movie on how much it affected you on your first viewing. So 0 skulls being not effective, 5 being extremely effective. You can use half and quarter skulls anywhere in the middle. David, what would your ranking of Child's Play 3 be?
not being a critic, I'm gonna go 3.5.
Which is a very fair ranking.
Yeah,
It got you started in the horror genre and something that's still so special to you today.
yeah,
You're still working, you're writing horror, you're going to horror cons, which I've gotten to spend some time with you. I've been able to spend some time with your beautiful partner at these as well. So being able to connect in person because of horror is such an amazing thing.
For
So to be
sure.
able to do these type of things, like that's what is my favorite part of doing Sledgehammer Horror is the people that Ashley and I get to meet and the friends that we get to make and the connection you and I made at GhouliCon and then to get back together at Horror Hound and like that stuff is special to me. Like that means more to me than any episode or money or anything like that. I've made a friend that I can talk to about horror whenever I want. So
Yeah.
it wasn't lip service, you guys, because we are at the end of the third act. The credits are about to roll and the curtain's about to drop. But before that happens, I want to remind you we have all of David's links down in the description. So make sure you're checking them out. Make sure you're checking out the books as well. I promise you, you will not regret it. David, please don't go anywhere, my friend. I got a couple more questions for you. Everyone else, if you haven't already, please like, comment, and subscribe. It does help build the channel more than you know. And follow Sledgehammer Horror on social media. Our links are in the description as well. But until next time, keep talking horror, stay what you are, and we'll see you guys soon.